How's everybody doing out there? Good? Good, yeah? Good. I've had the absolute pleasure today of the absolute pleasure of hanging out all day with one of my absolute icons in my life. I was first exposed to Richard's work as an undergrad student, and Keeper and Me opened my eyes to such a world of literature, a world of speech, and an ability to mix oral and writing in dynamic ways that I never thought possible. So it's a real pleasure to share this space with him and also share today with him. A lot of people might not know this, but Richard's also taken upon himself a really aggressive, I would call it an aggressive role with mentoring young writers such as myself, walking us through the experience of becoming a professional writer. And all day I've had an opportunity to get pearls of wisdom, and he'll drop them even in the middle of like eating a piece of sushi. So you got to be ready at any cost, And he gives out wonderful pieces of advice. And so some of these works are inspired by him. One of them was actually because of him. So the first piece that I am going to share this evening is a piece that my very first published poem. Now, anyone knows me, I'm not a poet, but I try to. I first became a writer through poetry, which I'm so glad is off the internet now. But this piece is really my first published piece, and it appeared in a Prairie Fire issue in 2001. It was sort of a collection of Manitoba writing. It was really the first Manitowapo. It had all of the writers in Manitoba. It's a wonderful collection. So this piece is called The New Act. Every once in a while, the government will come out with a new act interested in fixing all of our problems as Native peoples. And this piece is in honor of the government's. Doesn't really matter what political stripes they are, but in the various honor of them, this is called The New Act. And this is to be read in one's best acting voice. For those of you wondering about the New Act, the First Nations Self-Government Act, or the other act, or the Indian Act, or whatever act, it's an act that will be acting in respect to the act, which will fulfill the actions mandated by the acts enacted before. Which, of course, is not to say that this act will not be acted upon until the activities of the previous act is fully enacted. Actually, the act that we are talking about will not only separate the activities of the people into active groups, but it will prove that actors should not react to the act that we are talking about. The time for action is now. Let our actions speak louder than words and applaud the act and all of its future activities. The choice is simple. The act will be the framework for the action. Thank you. This short piece is, I got an email one morning from Richard, who's, like I said before, has taken a really wonderful role in supporting many of us into the writing field. Got an email from Richard one morning saying, I put your name forward for this, I don't know, this reporter wanted your name for some piece. I didn't have time to do it, so I threw your name forward, and I said, okay, what's this? Turns out it's like CBC 8th Fire, national, the national site, the CBC Reads. And so it's a wonderful gift that he's given me to do this piece. They asked me to do a piece on the future of Canada, the future relationships that could be formed coming out of the ideas of the 8th Fire series, if any of you watched that. And so this is a piece that I wrote called How the Thaw Creates the World. The change is coming. It always does. It reminds me of how we got here, from the spring thaw. This begins around March, or in the Anishinaabe language, the time we call Onabani Gizis, the moon of hard-crusted snow. There's a story about this time. It tells of when Baboon, or winter, and Zigwan, spring, fight. Baboon is stubborn and vain, refusing to leave the beautiful world he creates. Zigwan is patient and secure, knowing that no matter how long Baboon resists, he will give way. They struggle. The ice cracks, the wind blows. Sometimes Baboon simply refuses to go, like a child having a tantrum. Always Zigwan tolerates him. Finally, Zigwan is left to do her work. She inspires the plants to grow, the animals to return, and the sky to clear. This is why March has a second name, Endegogesis, the moon the crow returns. This story teaches about commitment in relationships. The bond between Baboon and Zigwan is a shared set of rights and responsibilities forged through constant communication and dedication. Another word for this is a treaty. Every time I hear this story, I learn something new about the hard work relationships require, the dedication, the creativity, the love. Anyone trying to relate to someone like Baboon knows what I mean. The world is a great storyteller. As a professor, writer, and storyteller to a 5-year-old, I'm asked to listen to it and read it all the time. What I often see are stories of creation, the processes living beings share in the common interest of life. In our language, we call this Indwe Maganaduk, we are all related, a philosophy that lives throughout Anishinaabe history, literature, and politics. What I also see for the good and the bad are stories that divide and destroy. They try to erase and remove others, forget that we are relatives. We have lots of stories to direct us, and we don't have to look anywhere else. In my own work, I see Anishinaabe who articulate Indwe Maganaduk in ways that have never been interrupted. I hear traditional stories that explain how every being in the universe carries gifts, and each are necessary for life to be shared in its fullest form. In today's novels, songs, and poetry, Anishinaabe artists explore how human beings constantly forge identities, communities, and ties with living entities like water. They tell stories filled with truth and power. They also remind us how human beings have a lot to learn about responsibility, respect, and relationships. Like the cycles and connections that make up Anishinaabe life, our ever-changing stories interpret our world and hopefully help create it. Stories like these prove that forces like English, the internet, and pollution may influence our cultures and communities, but they do not end relationship-making practices unless we let them. Like the struggle between Baboon and Zigwan, the change always comes. We must expect it. All we have to do is listen, learn, and act with a sense of history, relationship, and the world as we move into the future. Miigwech.